Hello, I'll be talking about Chapter 9 in our Interactive Interpreting Let's Talk book. And so, Chapter 9 is about turn taking and video relay. Before video interpreting was a thing, phone interpreting was used. And this would take place at conferences when there were breaks by professional interpreters in an office setting or in the conference, and the family members would be able to do it at the deaf person's home, or if it was a CODA or anyone like that could assist the deaf individual in making a phone call, or even neighbors who were familiar with signing could undertake this responsibility of assisting the deaf person with making a phone call. This way the interpreter isn't seen, so the hearing person may get confused in video relay interpreting. And as an interpreter, you have to clearly get the message across what you're calling for pretty quickly, otherwise they might think you're a telemarketer. Because hearing people aren't used to getting calls from deaf people, and so they might not understand that a customer, is trying to speak to them. And turn taking is very different in this kind of setting over the phone. And in video relay, the technology is a big factor. Like as we're seeing in our classes now, there could be blurriness, there could be background issues, there could be bad lighting. Even clothing is a factor. And the experience for callers varies as well. VRS is available 24/7, but again, it's two-dimensional, so it could be hard to understand. You can't see all the cues or all the signs clearly as it would be in person. And a lot of the calls are mostly from home and business-oriented. Like, a lot of people often have to call different doctors to get doctor's appointments. So that would be an example of that. And then there's informal settings that VRS interpreters have to work with, which would be family and friends, which would be informal. And it could even go into the intimate setting where the meaning behind the signs increases, where you might not know exactly what they mean by something, but the other person does know. And your introduction on the phone to someone who is hearing, it has to be short, simple, and slow, so that way they understand why you're calling and why there's an interpreter on the call. This way you do get visual feedback from the deaf caller, but you can't see the hearing person's face, so you don't know exactly if they're paying attention or if they're hearing everything correctly, and because the deaf consumer will be able to give you feedback, but the other won't. Any call, there's a big cultural difference on how to close it out, because many times in a doctor's appointment they say, okay, we'll see you next week, bye, and real quick. But family, you go, oh wait, let me tell you about this, oh let me tell you about that, and it could be very different, especially with the cultural backgrounds as well. And there are also things like phone menus, like calling a service provider, and they try and expedite your call to where it needs to be taken, but there's different questions you have to answer prior, so that can get confusing jumping between who's picking up the calls. And the interpreter needs to remember that they're not invisible, but they need to be transparent in the interpreting process here, in the interactive setting. That's pretty much it for this chapter. Thank you.